Greetings, it's an honor to be with you today. And today, the title is The Lying Spirit. Oh, yeah. Oh, Lord, help your boy with this one. Yeah, we're going to talk about the lying spirit today. I'm reading from 2nd Chronicles 18, verses 19 to 21. I have James 1, 13 to 15 also, but let me deal with 2nd Chronicles first. It says, chapter 18, verse 19 to 21. It says, And the Lord said, Who shall entice Ahab, king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one spake, saying, After this manner, and another saying, After that manner. Then there came out a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will entice him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, Thou shalt entice him, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out and do even so. Now, this account is an account of Judah and Israel getting ready to go to war together. They're making a league one another to go to war. And the amazing thing about this is there's a prophet of God named Micaiah. And unlike all the other prophets that were around Ahab, he was one that gave the word of God. Now, those other prophets, they were the ones that gave you what you wanted to hear. And Ahab was smart enough to know that these fellas are only saying what he wanted to hear. Now, the king, of course, the king that he was in league with, he realized, look here, if I'm going to go to war, I need to go with a sure word from God, or at least I need to hear from God. So that is how Micaiah came into the midst. Now, it's amazing, and of course, this is not covered in the verses that I read, but I'm trying to give you a summary here. When Micaiah comes, the messenger that went to Micaiah told him, look here, man, these other guys, they've already said Ahab is going to get the victory. They're going to get the victory, and we need you to follow suit. Now, Micaiah said, look here, I'm going to say the word of the Lord. But the funny thing is, when he got there, he seemed to have joined with the same song and dance with the other prophets. But upon the pressing of the king, he decided to give the word of God. Now, the word of God, of course, was judgment on Ahab. He was gonna lose this battle. But the point that I'm trying to make is the lying spirit, and you would think that Ahab and the king, you would think that they were ignorant to the spirit that was at work around them. They knew. And they tolerated it because the spirit was telling them what they wanted to hear. And this is sometimes it's just like us. We find voices in and around us that tell us what we want to hear, that feeds our nature, that speaks directly to our belly and not our spirit. And we gather these voices. We welcome them in because they're not speaking against some of the things that are contrary to God in our lives, because we don't want that opposition. We're looking for yes men and women to appease our nature. But oh, how I long for the word of God. And we're talking about the lying spirit today, and it was clearly an observation in that instant. And I want to read James 1, 13 to 15 before I got a story for you today, and I'm going to wrap it up with that story. It says, Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. Why? But God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust had conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it finished, bringeth forth death. All right, so we see a graduation happening there in James 1. Lust leads to sin, and sin leads to death. It's the eventual path if we allow lust to be left unchecked. Now to my story. I remember a few years ago, I was in the market for some robes. At this time in ministry, I was preaching in robes, and I wanted to get some robes done. And of course, I've never had a robe made. And So I was in the market to get some robes made. Now, I want to use as a disclaimer, as far as I know, at least 90% of the people in this story are saved, love Jesus as they say, and all of that. These were believers. All right? I'm giving it to you raw. So here we go. I went to the sewing place where they sell cloth, and I went to inquire about, first of all, where can I find somebody to make this robe for me? And the person, right when I was at the counter asking the lady behind the desk, and right next to me was this lady. I didn't really notice her. She was getting some buttons or something. And all of a sudden she perks up, and I should have seen that as a sign. And she says, well, I can do it. You know, I make robes and whatever the case. And so we started to, all of a sudden this became the lady's going to make the robe. So I asked her in front of the lady, the attendant, how much cloth that I'm going to need to make these robes, because it was 2 robes that was getting made. And she said, okay, yeah, you're going to need this amount of cloth. And so I got the cloth, and I got contact information from the lady that was going to make the robe. So I left with both cloths and the contact information for the lady that will eventually make the robe. Fast forward, I allowed the lady to make 1 robe, and I'm glad I did that, because when she made the robe, I went to her house to try it on and everything, and this was the words that the lady said to me. I want to take some pictures because this is my first robe. And yeah, I see your reaction. That was my reaction too. And I let it go, and I said, whatever. You know, this was my first robe, and so because this was my first one, I was excited, and because it was unique. But after some time, I found out that it wasn't such a good job. You know, it wasn't such a good job. I found out that it wasn't such a good job. So fast forward, I'm going to have the other robe made, and I go to another person that was referred to me, and so I take the cloth to this person, and they make me a robe, and that one came out wonderful. Now, the first robe that I had made, I decided, after seeing that second robe, I need to have this fixed. So I said, you know what, I'm going to have to find a third person to make the robe. I can't remember why I came to this conclusion, but I decided to do it. So I found the third person, and this is what the third person said to me when they were making the second robe. Man, this robe had so much cloth. In other words, what the lady was saying to me, she had to cut so much cloth off in order to get the robe to be at perfect fit and everything. And I came, and right there, I don't know if you caught it yet, but I found out that I was bamboozled, hoodwinked, or whatever by 3 people, pretty much, out of 4. The first lady I don't know if she was a believer. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, but she sold me more cloth than I was supposed to get. The second lady that I met at the sewing place was an imposter. She didn't make robes, but she lied. But she's a believer. But I just want to put that in there. The next lady that made the second robe was a believer also. I don't ask me how I know, but I know she was a believer. She made the robe, and she kept the rest of my cloth. She didn't give it to me. She knew that it was too much, but she kept it. And I didn't find this out until the last lady. Why is all of this important? I'm saying this because what enticed them in all of this? Money did it. And you have to ask yourself, what lust is enticing you to go in error? Because as a result of this, I wouldn't recommend none of those people that defrauded me, because advertisement, word of mouth, is the greatest witness to get you business. And it was sad that this was brothers and sisters in the Lord that did this to me. And I chuckle about it now because I think we don't know that our testimony can be tainted when we allow ourselves to be enticed by our lust. Money ain't everything, everybody. But stay woke out there, all right?